I was standing in line for coffee this morning, just kind of people watching, and I saw this guy. Let's call him Dave.
Okay.
And Dave looked absolutely wrecked. I mean, slumped shoulders, dark circles, just staring blankly at the pastry case like it held all the secrets of the
I
universe.
didn't know that look. We've all been Dave.
We've all been Dave.
Yeah.
And I found myself wondering, if I asked him why he felt that way, what would he even say?
He'd probably give you a story. A narrative.
A narrative, yeah.
Say, oh, my boss is being a jerk, or the economy's stressing me out, or, maybe just, I think I'm getting old.
Exactly. He'd have a story. We all do. We all have these narratives about why we do what we do or feel what we feel.
Mm-hmm.
We walk around acting like we're the captains of our own ships.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But there is this really provocative idea floating around in the research you sent over that suggests Dave is almost certainly wrong.
And not just Dave.
And not just Dave, right.
Mm-hmm.
That we, as human beings, are fundamentally terrible at knowing ourselves.
It's a bit of a blow to the ego, isn't it?
A huge blow.
We cherish this idea of the conscious self being in the driver's seat. But the core tension we're really exploring today, and it's a deep one, is this conflict between what the writer Gary Wolfe calls the vagaries of intuition.
The vagaries of intuition. I like that.
And the cold, hard reliability of data.
That's a polite way of saying we're just guessing all the time.
We are guessing, and we're often guessing wrong. I mean, Wolfe makes this point that humans are opaque, even to themselves.
Opaque. Wow.
We act for reasons that remain totally, unfathomable to our conscious minds. You might think you're snappy because your partner left the dishes out.
Okay, a classic example.
A classic. But the biological reality, the actual thing happening under the hood, might be a slight drop in your blood glucose combined with 2 nights of reduced REM sleep.
So my brain just makes up a story to fit the feeling.
It invents a story. I'm mad about the dishes. Yeah. It's a convenient narrative to explain a biological signal it doesn't really understand.
So we are all unreliable narrators of our own lives.
Precisely. And that brings us right to the hook for today's deep dive. If our intuition is basically a broken compass, what's the alternative?
Where do we go?
We're looking at the proposed solution to that opacity, the data-driven life, which is often called the quantified self.
I feel like I've heard this term thrown around for a decade. And it usually involves people who, take their mouths shut when they sleep or weigh their kale to the gram.
And it definitely started there. It was a bit of a niche hobby for, the geeks or the obsessive compulsive, for sure.
Right.
But the shift we're seeing now is it's moving from that niche into a fundamental philosophy of living. It's about getting away from that emotional guesswork and starting to treat your life like an engineering problem.
An engineering problem. That sounds, a little unromantic.
It does, doesn't it? It sounds cold.
Yeah.
But here's the thesis, and I want you to really sit with this for a second. The idea is that numbers make problems less resonant emotionally, but more tractable intellectually.
Okay, that is a dense sentence. Let's break that down. Less resonant emotionally. What does that mean?
Think about Dave in the coffee shop again. If he thinks he's tired because life is hard or I'm just not good at coping, that is a heavy emotional weight to carry around.
It's a character flaw. It feels permanent.
Exactly. It's about who he is. But if he has data that says, Dave, your deep sleep dropped by 40% because you had 3 glasses of wine and the room temperature was 74 degrees, suddenly the emotion just evaporates.
It's not a character flaw anymore.
No.
It's a physics problem.
Yeah.
It's an input-output issue.
It's a physics problem. And that's when it becomes tractable intellectually. You stop beating yourself up and you start fixing the inputs. You start looking at your life as a system, a machine that can be optimized.
You stop guessing.
And you start solving.
So today we're going to tear apart this whole philosophy. We're going to look at how to actually do this, the whole engineering mindset.
Right, the practical tools.
The specific tools, like backcasting, which frankly blew my mind when I was reading the notes. And then we'll talk about how to program habits so you don't have to rely on willpower, which nobody has enough of.
And we absolutely have to talk about the language, because if you want to understand this world, you have to speak the dialect. Optimization, causal drivers, bottlenecks.
These aren't just buzzwords.
They're not buzzwords, they're tools for thinking. They change how you see the world.
And then, and I know you were fired up about this part, we are going to look at the dark side, the flip side of the coin.
Mm.
Because if we turn our lives into data, who owns that data?
Mm-hmm.
Are we really optimizing ourselves, or are we just making ourselves better, more efficient employees for our corporate overlords?
The shift from the quantified self to the quantified us, yeah, it gets complicated very, very quickly.
All right, so let's start with the basics, the engineering mindset. You said earlier that the baseline requirement, sort of the price of admission, is that you cannot improve what you do not measure.
That is the golden rule. It's the absolute foundation. But I want to be really clear here. This isn't just about hoarding data.
Right.
I know people who have 5 years of spreadsheets tracking every single calorie they've ever eaten, and they haven't lost a pound or gained an ounce of muscle.
So data without action is just trivia.
It's worse than trivia. It's noise. It's overwhelming. The goal is to uncover what Wolf calls these obscure quantitative signals.
Obscure quantitative signals. It sounds like we're searching for extraterrestrial life or something.
In a way, we are. We're searching for the alien inside us, the part that operates on rules we don't consciously understand.
Like that.
Let's go back to the thermostat analogy, because this is the perfect way to really get a handle on the engineering mindset.
Okay.
Think about how a thermostat works. It has 3 basic parts. First, a sensor. It measures reality. It says it is 68 degrees in this room.
Fact. Just a number.
Just a number. Second, it has a comparator. It compares that reality to the goal. I want it to be 72 degrees.
Okay, so there's a gap.
There's a gap. And third, an actuator. It does something about the gap. It turns on the furnace.
It's a loop. Measure, compare, act. Then measure again.
It's an optimization loop. Now, most people live their lives without the sensor.
They just have the feeling.
They just have the feeling, I'm cold, so they put on a sweater, then they get hot 10 minutes later, they take it off, they're constantly just reacting to the immediate sensation.
Total chaos.
The engineering mindset says, no, stop, install a sensor first.
So applying this to real life, let's stick with our friend Dave from the coffee shop. Dave feels foggy every afternoon at 2 p.m.
Right, the classic afternoon slump.
If Dave is relying on intuition, what does he do?
He might say, I need more coffee. So he drinks the coffee, gets that jittery spike, crashes even harder at 4 p.m., and then he sleeps poorly that night because of the caffeine. The cycle repeats.
It's a broken loop. He's actually making the problem worse.
He is. So how does Engineer Dave handle this?
Engineer Dave installs a sensor.
He installs a sensor. Maybe it's a continuous glucose monitor, which is getting more common. Or maybe it's just a simple, rigorous log. He writes down his lunch inputs and then his energy outputs on a scale of 1 to 10.
So he's creating his own data set.
He is. And after a week, he starts to see a pattern. He notices an obscure quantitative signal. Every single time he eats a bagel for lunch, high simple carbs, his energy plummets 90 minutes later.
Okay, so he has the data. The bagel is the culprit, the murder weapon.
And now he has agency. This is the key word for this whole section.
Yeah.
Agency.
Right.
When you rely on intuition, you are a victim of the fog. It just happens to you. But when you have data, you are the operator of a machine that was just fed the wrong fuel.
You can fix it.
You can tune up the machine. You switch the bagel for a salad with chicken. You track the result. Energy stays stable. Boom. You have successfully engineered a solution.
It sounds so simple when you put it that way, but it requires this massive shift in how we view ourselves. We like to think we're mysterious, poetic beings. This approach says, no, you're a biological algorithm. Go debug the code.
And that can feel cold. I get that. But at the end of the day, is it better to be mysterious and miserable or understood and effective? That's really the trade-off we're talking about.
That's a fair point, a very fair point. Now let's get into the heavy artillery here. The specific strategies, because tracking is just the baseline. The concept that really stopped me in my tracks was backcasting.
I love backcasting. I think it is such a powerful, powerful tool because it completely flips traditional planning on its head.
Usually we plan forward, right? We say, I am here today, so what should I do next week?
Right. And it sounds like I'll try to go to the gym a bit more, or I'll try to save a little money. It's vague. It's based on your current limitations and feelings.
It's hopeful, but not structured.
Exactly. Backcasting works backward from a specific, non-negotiable future goal.
The example in the research that really hit me was Dr. Peter Attia's concept of the centenarian decathlon.
This is a brilliant, brilliant example of backcasting applied to the human body, to health span. Attia asks his patients a very simple question. What do you want to be able to do physically when you are 100 years old? Or 90, or 80. You pick a terminal age.
And people probably say these,
Yeah.
qualitative, fuzzy things like, I want to play with my grandkids, or I want to be able to carry my own groceries.
Exactly. But play with grandkids is a nice sentiment. It's a feeling. An engineer cannot build a bridge based on a nice sentiment.
An engineer needs numbers.
An engineer needs physics. So ADIA forces them to translate that sentiment into specific physical tasks.
Okay, let's role play this. I'm 40 years old. I want to be able to pick up my grandchild from the floor when I'm 80.
Okay, let's do the math. An average toddler weighs what, 30 pounds? Maybe more.
Let's say 30 pounds. A wiggly 30 pounds, which is harder.
A wiggly 30 pounds. So the physical task is lift a 30-pound unstable weight from the ground to waist height, hold it, and stabilize it while it moves.
Yeah.
That requires a specific amount of lumbar strength, glute strength, grip strength, and core stability. Now, here's the kicker. You are 40. You are going to lose muscle mass every single year between now and 80.
Oh, great. Thanks for the reminder.
It's a biological fact. It's called sarcopenia. You lose roughly 3 to 8% of your muscle mass per decade after age 30, and that rate accelerates after 60.
That is deeply depressing.
It's reality. So if you need the ability to lift 30 pounds at age 80, you cannot just be strong enough to lift 30 pounds today.
Because that strength is going to decay.
It's going to decay significantly. If you can only lift 30 pounds today, by the time you're 80, you won't be able to lift a gallon of milk.
I see where this is going. I need to build a buffer. A huge buffer for the inevitable decline.
You need a massive buffer. To have the functional strength to lift 30 pounds at 80, you might need to be able to deadlift 150 pounds at age 40. Now, I'm making the exact numbers up slightly for this example, but the principle holds.
You have to calculate the rate of decline and work backward to determine today's requirement.
Yes. Backcasting forces you to define present-day requirements based on that fixed future point.
It takes all the negotiation out of today.
All of it. You don't go to the gym today because you feel like it or you're motivated. You go because the math says if you miss this session, you are statistically chipping away at the possibility of picking up your grandchild in the year 2064.
That creates a frantic sense of urgency. I'm not sure if I like it or I'm terrified by it.
It creates clarity. It connects the mundane, boring action of today doing a squat with the ultimate, most meaningful vision of your life. That is engineering at its best.
It's terrifying, but I can definitely see how it's effective.
Yeah.
Now, the second strategy is reverse engineering. How is this different from backcasting?
It's a great question. Backcasting is about projecting yourself into the future and working back. Reverse engineering is about decoding something in the present or the past.
Okay.
It's about looking at something that is already working a success story and figuring out how it was built.
Like taking apart a toaster to see how the heating element works.
Exactly. But you do it with success, not toasters. This is often used in professional settings. Let's say you work in sales. You look at the top 10% of performers in your company, the outliers.
Usually we just look at them and say, wow, she's really talented, or he's just got a great personality. We kind of mystify their success.
Right. We attribute it to magic or some innate talent. The engineering mindset completely rejects magic. It assumes there is a system, a repeatable process.
You study them.
You study them like an anthropologist. You strip away all the noise to find the causal drivers.
Causal drivers. That's another key vocabulary term here.
It's maybe the most crucial one. You have to be able to distinguish between a correlation and a causal driver.
Okay, give me an example. What's the difference?
Let's say the top salesperson, we'll call her Sarah, wears expensive suits and also makes 50 cold calls before 9:00 a.m. every day.
Okay. I can picture Sarah.
A junior salesperson might look at Sarah and think, oh, it's the suit. I need to buy an expensive suit. That's a correlation. The suit just happens to be there.
But it's not causing the sales.
It's not causing the sales. The 50 cold calls before 9:00 a.m. when decision makers are maybe more available and less guarded, that's the causal driver. Reverse engineering is the art of distinguishing that signal from all the noise around it.
Can you do this with yourself, though? Like, reverse engineer your own good days?
Absolutely. This is one of the most practical things I think you can do starting today. Think about the last time you had a bright spot, a day where you were just on fire. You were focused, happy, energetic.
It happens occasionally. Usually feels like an accident, like catching lightning in a bottle.
Don't let it be an accident. That's the whole point. Treat that day like a crime scene.
It's okay. I like that metaphor.
Investigate it. What happened? What were the antecedent conditions? How many hours did you sleep the night before? What did you eat for breakfast? Did you exercise? Did you check email first thing? Or did you do an hour of deep work?
So I'm looking for the recipe. the recipe for my own success.
You are looking for the algorithm of your own peak performance. And maybe you realize, holy cow, every time I have a great day, it's preceded by a 20-minute walk outside first thing in the morning.
That's the causal driver.
That's a causal driver. Now you know how to bake that cake again on purpose. You can engineer more good days instead of just hoping for them.
I love that. Treat your good days like a crime scene. Okay, that brings us to strategy number 3. Eliminating bottlenecks responsively.
Yes, this comes directly from the theory of constraints in manufacturing and business operations.
Okay, so bring us into the factory.
Imagine an assembly line for cars. You have one machine that stamps out car doors, and it's super fast. It can make 100 doors an hour. Then you have a second machine that paints the doors, but it's really slow. It can only paint 10 doors an hour.
So you had a giant pile of unpainted doors stacking up between the two machines.
Right. The painting machine is the bottleneck. It's the point of congestion. Now, if you're the factory manager and you spend $1 million to make the door stamping machine even faster, so it makes 200 doors an hour, what happens to the factory's output?
Nothing. You just get a bigger, more frustrating pile of unpainted doors.
Yeah.
You haven't actually improved the output of the whole factory by a single car.
Exactly. You've completely wasted your money and effort. In our lives, we do this all the time.
I do it.
Yeah. We optimize the parts that are already strong because it feels good and it's easy, and we ignore the bottleneck because it's hard or painful.
Oh, I feel called out again. This is the runner who keeps buying lighter, more expensive shoes.
Yes.
Which is optimizing the equipment, but refuses to sleep more than 5 hours a night.
Perfect example. Sleep is the bottleneck. Until he fixes the sleep, the $100 shoes are totally irrelevant. The engineering mindset forces you to ask, what is the single limiting factor holding the entire system back right now?
And you only focus on that one thing.
You focus exclusively on that congestion point. If you are exhausted, your bottleneck is recovery. Don't try to learn a new language or start a side hustle. That's like speeding up the door stamping machine. Fix the sleep.
And once the sleep is fixed,
The flow improves, the whole system gets better. Then you look for the next bottleneck. Maybe now it's focus. Okay, solve that. It's a responsive, iterative process of improvement.
it feels so much more manageable than the usual advice, which is change your whole life immediately.
Right. It's not that.
It's just find the one clog in the pipe and clear it, then find the next one.
Precisely. It turns self-improvement into a series of small, logical repairs rather than a giant, overwhelming, and usually doomed makeover project.
Okay, so we have the mindset. We're tracking, we're backcasting, we're hunting for our bottlenecks. But now we hit the wall that everyone hits.
Execution.
Execution. Because I can have the most beautiful spreadsheet in the world, but if I'm lazy or I have bad habits, none of the data matters.
This brings us right to section 2, the algorithm of habit. We have to talk about the execution layer of this whole system.
We're pulling heavily from James Clear here, his book, Atomic Habits, which is basically the Bible of this stuff. But I want to look at it through this specific engineering lens.
Clear's work is brilliant because he does exactly that. He treats a habit not as a moral failing or a triumph of character.
Right, it's not about being a good person or a bad person.
No, he treats it as a loop, a piece of code that runs automatically in your brain. Cue, craving, response, reward.
It's a machine. A 4-step machine.
It is. And if you want to change the output of that machine, you have to tweak the variables at each of those 4 stages. You don't try harder. You redesign the system.
Okay, let's walk through this with a practical example. Let's go back to Dave. Dave wants to start running in the morning. That's his goal.
Okay.
But every morning, his current habit loop is alarming. Alarm goes off, he hits snooze, and then he scrolls on his phone for 30 minutes. How does engineer Dave fix this broken loop?
Okay, let's look at the cue, the trigger. Rule number 1 for building a good habit is make the cue obvious.
Right now, Dave's cue is his alarm, which is on his phone, which is right next to his bed, which immediately leads to scrolling. It's a bad cue.
It's a cue for the wrong habit. So engineer Dave changes the environment. He lays out his running clothes and shoes right in the doorway of the bedroom the night before.
So he literally has to trip over them to leave the room.
He can't miss it. It's an obvious, unavoidable cue. He's designing his environment to trigger the right script.
Okay, cue is obvious. Then the craving.
Yeah.
Make it attractive. Running isn't always attractive, especially at 6 a.m.
No, it's not. So you have to bundle it with something that is. This is a technique called temptation bundling. Maybe Dave only allows himself to listen to his favorite true crime podcast while he is running.
Ah, so he doesn't get to find out who the killer is unless he's on the trail.
Exactly. He starts to crave the run because he craves the story.
That's smart. Okay, third step. The response. Make it easy.
This is all about reducing friction. Friction is the enemy of habits. If Dave has to find his socks, find his keys, find his headphones, and lace up his shoes, that's a lot of little friction points.
Steps where he can give up.
Yes. Each one is an off-ramp. But if he sleeps in his running shorts, which sounds a little crazy, but it works for some people,
Whatever works.
he's eliminated steps. If his keys and headphones are already sitting in his shoes by the door, he has made the response require almost zero willpower.
And finally, the reward. Make it satisfying.
This is where data can come back in. The runner's high might not kick in for weeks, and the weight loss is even slower. The natural reward is delayed. So he needs an immediate, satisfying reward.
To close the loop.
To close the loop,
Yeah.
maybe it's putting a big red X on a physical calendar or checking a box in his habit tracking app. That visual click of completion is a little dopamine hit that tells his brain, hey, that was good, let's do it again tomorrow.
So you're basically training your brain like you would train a dog with an immediate treat.
You are. And the inverse is true for breaking bad habits. You just flip the roles. Make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying.
So for his phone scrolling habit,
Make it invisible. Put the phone in the kitchen to charge at night, not on the nightstand. Make it unattractive.
how do you make a phone unattractive?
Turn the screen to grayscale.
Wait, really? Black and white?
Yeah, you can set your phone to display only in black and white. It is absolutely amazing how boring and unappealing Instagram becomes when it looks like a newspaper from 1950.
You're hacking the visual input.
You're removing the color-induced dopamine hits. You're changing the user interface of your life to get a different behavioral output.
That is the absolute definition of the engineering mindset. You aren't relying on, I should be better. You're just changing the code.
Which brings us to another concept borrowed from the world of software, the agile life, using sprints.
Sprints. This comes from software development, right?
Yes. In the old days of software, companies would use what's called the waterfall method. They'd plan a massive project for 2 years, build the whole thing in isolation, and then launch it.
And what would happen?
Usually by the time they launched, the market had changed or the product didn't actually work the way users wanted. It was a huge, expensive failure.
Sounds exactly like a New Year's resolution. I will lose 50 pounds this year. It's this massive, long-term, all-or-nothing goal.
And by February, you failed, and you give up for the rest of the year. Agile development scraps that. It breaks work down into short cycles called sprints, usually 1 or 2 weeks.
Okay,
And for each sprint, the team agrees on one single sprint goal.
a North Star for just those 2 weeks.
Exactly. It's a brief explanatory objective. So instead of fix my entire health, your sprint goal might be, for the next 14 days, I will eat 30 grams of protein at breakfast. That's it.
It's contained. It's manageable.
It's a sandbox. You run the experiment for 2 weeks. At the end of the sprint, you do what's called a retrospective. You ask, did it work? Did I feel better? Did I have more energy? If yes, you can choose to keep it. If no, you discard it and try a different experiment for the next sprint.
I love that it removes the pressure of forever. I feel like I can do almost anything for just 2 weeks.
Right. It's not a life sentence. It's a 2-week test. And it creates data. You are gathering real-world evidence about what actually works for your body, not what works for some influencer on Instagram.
You're iterating your way to a better life.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
You're iterating.
You know, we've been using a lot of very specific words today. Optimization, causal, sprint, bottleneck. And I think it's worth pausing here to really dig into the vocabulary of this movement.
I agree.
Because words really do shape how we think. And if you want to walk the walk, you have to talk the talk.
It's true. The language of the data-driven life is very precise. It borrows from statistics, from economics, from manufacturing. And learning these terms isn't just about, sounding smart at a party. It's about sharpening your own thinking.
Okay, let's hit a few of these. We've said optimization a dozen times. What does it actually mean in this context?
Optimization. In normal conversation, people use this to just mean making things better. But in this world, it means something more specific. making something as effective as possible within a given set of constraints.
So it implies trade-offs.
It always implies trade-offs. You can't optimize a car for speed and fuel efficiency and cargo space and safety all at the same time at maximum levels. It's impossible. You have to choose what you are optimizing for.
That's a key distinction. So in your life, you have to define the variable. Are you optimizing for money, for free time, for longevity, for creativity? You can't have them all maximized simultaneously.
Exactly. You have to pick your priority. Then there's quantitative versus qualitative. We touched on this, but let's really drive it home.
Quantitative is numbers. Qualitative is feelings, descriptions.
Right. I slept 7 hours and 12 minutes and had 58 minutes of deep sleep is quantitative. Feel kind of groggy this morning is qualitative.
And the goal of the quantified self is to translate the qualitative feeling into the quantitative data.
Yes.
Why, though? Why is the number inherently better than the feeling? My feeling is real.
Your feeling is real, but feelings are volatile. They change based on context, on mood, on 1,000 other things. If you wake up groggy, you might spiral and think you're getting sick or you're depressed.
Okay.
But if you look at your data and see you slept 7 hours but had low deep sleep because you ate late, you know it's just a temporary recovery issue. The number stabilizes the reality. It gives you an anchor.
It anchors you. That makes sense. Okay, let's talk about outliers.
An outlier is a data point that differs significantly from the rest of the observations. In a scientific experiment, you sometimes discard outliers, but in a personal context, we should be hunting for them.
Hunting for them.
Absolutely. If you track your mood for a month, and you are generally a 6 out of 10, but one Tuesday you are a 2 out of 10, that is a massive outlier.
And you shouldn't just ignore it and say, oh, weird day.
No, most people do, but the engineer zooms in on that outlier. Why was that a 2? What happened that day? What did I eat? Who did I talk to? And conversely, why was that Friday a perfect 10 out of 10? The outliers are where the secrets to your system are hiding.
And to connect all these ideas, to build arguments from the data, you need the right transition words. This sounds like we're back in English class, but you're saying it's actually a logic lesson.
It is 100% a logic lesson. If you listen to people who really understand and work with data, they use very specific logical connectors. They use causal words like therefore or consequently or accordingly.
My resting heart rate is up 5 beats per minute. Consequently, I am taking a rest day from the gym.
Exactly. It explicitly links the data to the action. Then they use adversative words. However, conversely, on the other hand, this is crucial when the data contradicts your intuition.
I feel strong and ready to train. However, my recovery metrics are in the red.
Yes. The however forces you to acknowledge the conflict and make a conscious choice about which signal you're going to trust, the feeling or the number.
And then the last category is additive words. Furthermore, moreover.
This is for building a case, for layering evidence. I slept well last night. Furthermore, I ate clean all day yesterday. Moreover, my stress levels are low. Therefore, I'm going to attempt a personal best in my run today.
You're building a logical argument for why you should expect a certain performance.
You're presenting a legal case to your own body. You are moving from being a passenger, subject to the whims of the driver, to being the actual pilot with a dashboard full of data.
Pilot, operator, engineer. These are powerful words. Self-actualization, agency, resilience. These are the goals, right? This is the promise of the data-driven life. But
I knew there was a but coming.
there is always a but. We have to zoom out because this all sounds great when it's just me in my own house optimizing my breakfast choices. But we don't live in a vacuum. We live in a society. And this data isn't just staying on my phone or my watch, is it?
No, it is not. And this is where we move into section 4, the biopolitics of self-tracking. This is where the so what question gets really, really heavy.
You use the term biopolitics. Can we unpack that? It sounds like something from a very bleak dystopian novel.
It comes from the philosopher Michel Foucault. And simply put, it's the way that biological life, our health, our bodies, our life and death, is managed and governed at a population level.
Okay.
And what we're seeing with the rise of the quantified self is the emergence of a new kind of citizen, the neoliberal citizen.
A neoliberal citizen. What does that mean in plain English?
It means the ideal citizen is no longer just someone who, votes and follows the law. The ideal citizen today is a self-optimizing entrepreneurial mini corporation.
A mini corporation.
Think about it. In the past, the social safety net, the government, the community, was supposed to take care of you if you got sick or fell on hard times. But as state support declines, the responsibility shifts entirely to the individual.
You are the CEO of You Incorporated.
And if you, Inc., goes bankrupt, if you get sick, if you burn out, if you can't cope, it's your fault. It's seen as a personal failure of management.
If you had just tracked your data better, if you would just optimize your sleep more efficiently, you wouldn't be sick.
Exactly. It shifts the burden of huge systemic problems like healthcare costs or stressful work culture onto individual biology.
That is an immense amount of pressure.
Yeah.
And corporations are absolutely feeding into this, right? We're seeing this explosion of corporate wellness programs.
This is the gamification of work, and it's everywhere. Look at the examples. Target offered Fitbits to its 335,000 employees. BP distributed trackers to their entire staff.
Now, hold on. I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second. If my boss wants to give me a free Fitbit and incentivize me to walk more, isn't that a good thing? It helps me get healthy. It saves the company money on insurance premiums. Isn't that a win-win?
On the surface, it absolutely looks like a win-win, but we have to look at the underlying incentive structure. Why does the company want you to track your steps?
To lower their insurance costs.
Correct, and to make you a more productive worker. A healthy worker shows up more often and works harder, but here's the subtle and kind of sinister implication. The very definition of a good employee is changing.
How so?
It used to be about the quality of your work output. Now it is becoming biological. To be a good employee, you must be healthy, fit, productive, and crucially tracked.
It blurs the line between my work life and my personal life. If I'm tracking my sleep so I can be sharp for the big meeting tomorrow, then my sleep, which should be my private leisure time, is now part of my job.
You're working while you're unconscious.
I'm working while I'm unconscious.
Your leisure time becomes a project. It becomes a form of labor, all in service of corporate productivity. And what happens if you opt out? What happens if you're the one person in the office who says, no thanks, I don't want the company Fitbit?
You look like you have something to hide. You look like a liability, a financial risk.
Or just a bad sport who isn't a team player, and then you add the competition aspect on top of it. The Strava leaderboards, the office-wide steps competitions.
The gamification of life.
It sounds fun and harmless, but it creates what sociologists call particularistic solidarity.
That is a mouthful. What does it mean?
It means we bond with people who are just like us. In this case, people who have the time, the money, the physical ability, and the tech savviness to track themselves and compete.
So it's a club.
It's a club. And if you're a single mom working 2 jobs, you don't have time to train for the corporate 5K or log 15,000 steps a day.
So you fall to the bottom of the leaderboard. You are visibly, quantifiably lesser than the guy in sales who runs marathons on the weekend.
Exactly. It creates a new kind of social hierarchy based on biological data, and it silently excludes anyone who can't or won't play the game.
That is a genuinely chilling thought.
Yeah.
And it leads us right into the final and maybe most important section, the ethics. Because once this data exists, it doesn't just sit there, it travels. We're moving from the quantified self to the quantified us.
This is the real frontier. We're seeing the rise of concepts like biosociality, people forming social groups based on their shared data. Sites like Patients Like Me, where people share incredibly intimate medical details to find others with the same condition.
And data philanthropy. The idea that you should donate your data for the good of science. The pitch is always, don't be selfish with your privacy. Share your heart rate data to help us cure cancer.
And it's a compelling argument. If aggregating all of our data could stop the next flu outbreak before it starts, don't we have a kind of moral duty to share it?
But the flip side, the cost of entry, is that once it's out there, you lose control of it forever. You're trading privacy for the public good.
And the risks of that trade are not theoretical anymore. We have to talk about what Shannon Valor calls the 3 horsemen of data risk: security, functional creep, and bias.
Security seems obvious. Hackers getting my data.
Yes. Symantec did a study showing that most wearables are incredibly vulnerable to location tracking. A hacker could see your daily running route. But the bigger security risk is something called re-identification.
What's that?
You think your data is anonymous because your name isn't attached to it. But if a company has your anonymized GPS data from your watch, I can see the dot that leaves one house every morning, goes to one office building, and returns to the same house every night. I can figure out exactly who you are in about 5 minutes.
That's terrifying. But functional creep is the one that sounds like a legal nightmare waiting to happen.
Functional creep is when data collected for one benign purpose, like personal fitness, is later used for a completely different, often punitive purpose, like in a legal case or for insurance.
There's a famous court case with the Fitbit, right?
Yes. A woman in Pennsylvania claimed she was sexually assaulted while she was asleep. The defense team subpoenaed her Fitbit data,
Yeah.
and the data showed she was walking around and active at the time she claimed to be asleep.
So the device literally testified against her in court.
Regardless of the truth of that specific tragic case, the precedent is now set. Your own biological data can be used against you. Imagine a child custody battle where one parent's lawyer pulls the other's sleep data to try and prove they are unstable or erratic.
Or an insurance company that denies your life insurance claim because your heart rate variability data from the past 5 years showed you were chronically stressed, so the heart attack was your fault for not managing it.
That is the ultimate nightmare scenario, and it leads to the final horseman, algorithmic bias. The old saying, garbage in, garbage out.
We've seen this with things like facial recognition software not working accurately on people with darker skin.
Right, because it was trained primarily on data from white faces. The same thing happens with health data. If we train our health algorithms on data from young, white, wealthy men who are the primary early adopters of these tracking devices, the algorithm learns that healthy looks like a young, white, wealthy man.
So if you're an older Hispanic woman, the algorithm might flag your perfectly normal biological signals as abnormal or risky simply because it hasn't seen enough data from people like you.
We automate our existing societal biases. We build inequality directly into the code.
And because it's often a black box algorithm.
Meaning a deep learning system where even the creators don't know exactly how it's making its decisions.
You can't even argue with it. The computer says no to your loan or your insurance, and nobody can even tell you why.
Wow. Okay. We have gone from measure your sleep to feel less foggy to the dystopian automation of inequality in about 50 minutes.
It's quite a journey, isn't it?
A necessary one, though, because if we are going to adopt these tools, and I think we should, I still love the idea of backcasting and eliminating bottlenecks. We have to do it with our eyes wide open.
Absolutely. So let's try and synthesize all this. Where do we land at the end of the day?
We started with a simple problem. We are opaque to ourselves. Our intuition is unreliable. We need better sensors.
So we adopted the engineering mindset. We started using tools like backcasting to set clear, long-term goals, reverse engineering to find the causal drivers of success, and hunting down our bottlenecks to make real progress.
Then we talked about the execution layer, how to actually build atomic habits by manipulating our cues and rewards, making good habits easy and bad habits hard. We learned the vocabulary of optimization.
But then we saw the trap of becoming a neoliberal project, where our health is just a measure of our value as an employee, the trap of handing over our deepest biological agency to a corporation in exchange for a gold star on a digital leaderboard.
It's a double-edged sword. Data can be a superpower that gives you agency, or it can be a cage that limits it.
That is the perfect summary.
So here is the final thought for you to chew on, the big provocative question. If we outsource our self-knowledge to algorithms, if we start to trust the Fitbit more than we trust how we actually feel, do we ultimately gain control, or do we lose the very intuition that makes us human?
That is the challenge, isn't it? Use the data to tune the car, but never, ever forget that you are the driver, not the engine.
So here is your call to action for this week. Experiment. Pick one metric, just one. Track your sleep, track your steps, track your focus for a week. Be an engineer.
But while you are doing it, keep asking yourself 2 questions. Who owns this number? And is this number serving me, or am I serving it?
That's the real optimization.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you on the next one.